Growing up, I loved Plants vs. Zombies. I watched The Walking Dead religiously through the first 6 seasons, and I grinded more COD Zombies than probably any other alternate game mode I've ever touched. In short, I'm what you could call a zombie fan. There's something about the world devolving into chaos, watching the battle of good versus evil wage amongst the survivors, and witnessing the rebirth, the return of nature into a time when simple tasks took days to complete. There's just something about these things that just scratches a little spot in my brain and says, "Ooh, we like this." So, when a little game named Surrounded came across my Steam For You page, I had to give it a try. And well, I liked what I saw. For those of you who don't know, Surrounded is a voxel art zombie survival sandbox that appears to have drawn major inspiration from titles like Unturned and Project Zomboid, both of which I've spent my fair share of hours on. And with this being my first survival game on the channel, I decided to do something I've always wanted to do. Inspired by Luke the Notable surviving 100 days hardcore Minecraft, I decided I'd give it my own spin and try surviving just 1 month in Surrounded, but 1 week at a time. So, let's start by introducing the guest of honor, Marsh Dow, a 40-year-old underpaid pizza delivery man who has only ever had one goal his entire life: survive. Well, lucky for him, that skill will be in need more than ever before in this new world. We're going to play on standard mode, and days will be 30 minutes long and nights 15, so one full day cycle will take 45 minutes. Just so you don't have to pull out the calculator, that means one full week of gameplay is 315 minutes, or approximately 5 hours. There is a sleep mechanic within the game, so the total time will most likely be a little less than that for 1 week. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and welcome to surviving 1 month in Surrounded. Week 1 starts now. Day 1 began, and I know that the first thing one needs to do in the apocalypse is get their bearings. This is my first time playing the game outside of the tutorial, but I have gamer instincts, so I'll be alright. Marsh noticed these buildings behind his spawn and headed on over, discovering his first point of interest, Pine Road neighborhood. He found some gas pumps that I'm sure will be of use later, but for now, they're just big barrels. His first zombie headed over shortly after, and was then dispatched of in an equally fast manner, using his melee weapon, scoring its first zombie kill. While looting the body, the zombie decided to rudely blow itself up on Marsh. However, he did manage to get his first gun from it, as well as some ammo, which I'll find a gun for later. Equipping the pistol, Marsh took his irradiated body into the nearest building to see what loot he could scavenge. He first found a medical crate with a flare gun, 2 splints, and some medical rags inside. And then, heading across the room, found these crates with nothing of note right now, just some crafting materials and plastic bottles that will undoubtedly be used down the line. It's now that Marsh decided he wanted to clear out Pine Roads and make it a temporary base, the very minimum for the night. Taking out his knife, he charged outside to begin clearing the zombies in the area. The 2 nearest to Marsh fell to his blade, and then he headed into the closest house to see what kind of loot he might be able to scrounge up. Inside, Marsh searched through a couple of cupboards, some trash bags, the sink, and eventually the fridge, finding several useful tools, weapons, and consumables that he'll come back to pick up once he has more inventory space. While looting, the zombie charged in, disrupting his flow. Marsh quickly handled the nuisance and then leveled up for the first time, getting to use his first skill point, which he placed into regen. This will allow Marsh to heal up to 80% of his health, as long as he's in good enough shape to do so. With a thirst for blood, Marsh headed back outside, and it's at this point that the majority of Pine Roads was cleared out, with only a few zombies remaining in the neighborhood, mostly in the back. After this brief rampage, Marsh looted the house across the street, finding its first bit of body armor and with it some much needed inventory slots. He also found this locker that can't be accessed until he gets some bolt cutters, and he began to fill up the pockets of his inventory with just about anything he could get his hands on, especially consumables and medical items. He searched through the corpses scattered throughout the neighborhood and took what loot he couldn't carry earlier off of them, even finding these trash bags with some items he had missed. Also, there was this cop who must have had one really bad final day on Earth. He found a truck with some more items, and he headed back inside the initial looted building to see if he had missed anything. And well, yeah, there was an entire second floor hiding from sight. It was cleared out with plenty of space available, which is what led to my decision to make this building Marsh's first base of operations and the safe house for the night. With his eyes on the prize, Marsh headed back downstairs and out to go loot the final house on the street, but he ran into the first zombie that really dealt some damage to him. In the end, he was no match for Marsh, but it did knock him down to 49% health and left him bleeding. But luckily, all those medical rags and bandages scavenged earlier came in handy. Marsh wrapped himself up to stop the bleeding and then looted a car on the way to the final house, which he found a table that he then proceeded to carry all the way back to his base in place. Marsh was a huge fan of MTV's Cribs and saw the apocalypse as his chance to shine. This was really good practice now. After placing the table, Marsh made his way back to the last house on the street to finally loot it. But first, I had to lockpick my way in. But luckily, all those hours spent in Skyrim finally paid off, and I got it on my first try. Inside, Marsh found a large stockpile of loot. There was a cupboard that somehow magically held a whole piano. We'll have to save this for another time. There were multiple crates and stockpiles of military supplies, which held various ammos, his first container that could carry stuff around like a bag, and a military vest that he was able to place within the container and then place stuff inside of it, getting a little bit of a chest inside of a chest system started. I feel now is not a bad time to mention that the game does implement a speed up system for looting that allows you to loot faster, but at the risk of making more noise and briefly halting your progress. Whenever this happens, if zombies are nearby, they might hear the noise and come closer, which happens quite a lot. Before leaving, Marsh found his first primary weapon, the beautiful Chris Vector, which took me back to my COD Modern Warfare 2 days. While finishing looting the fridge, which appears the last owners had not stocked for him, a distant rumbling like that of a plane could be heard. Marsh walked outside and was greeted with the final two zombies in the neighborhood, who he undoubtedly stirred up with his scavenging. Marsh quickly dispatched of them, and then watched with awe and anxiety as a giant AC-130 looking plane flew overhead, undoubtedly dragging thousands of zombies towards its flight path because of the noise. It is then that I noticed how beautiful this game looks at night, and in general. But it was also when I realized I couldn't see Jack, so I fixed the gamma settings so that I'll be able to navigate the game at night. Finally being able to see the world around me, well, kinda, it's still really dark, I set Marsh back to looting houses in the neighborhood, then head back to the safe house for the night. Once inside, Marsh began to sort through his day's findings, but heard a noise that drew his attention. He crept to the window, and outside was a young, snow-white deer walking by and bleeding. After taking in the beauty of the scene, Marsh went back to sorting his items and taking stock for the day. His big finds were the Vector submachine gun, the M9 pistol, the vest and case for storage, a Winchester revolver, miscellaneous ammos, medical items and foods, and last but not least, this level 0 keycard, which should be used later for a secret location somewhere in the world. Once his items were sorted, Marsh watched the deer fade into the night, taking a deep breath. His first day of survival was finally over. In the early hours of day 2, Marsh decided to make his way back outside to check out the surrounding area and see if he missed anything. On the way down the stairs, loud shots sounded outside, and he rushed back up to see if he could get a glimpse of the shooter. Far in the distance, behind the furthest house on the left, he could see bullet tracers. Marsh had no idea who the shooter was, but seeing that they were trying to kill the zombies who had moved in overnight, he decided to take up his own guns and fire on the zombies closest to himself. He landed a carefully placed shot on the sprinter before immediately running out of ammo, and in true gamer fashion, he swapped to his secondary because it's quicker than reloading. He fired several more shots, downing the two shamblers that were nearing him, and then headed downstairs to finish off the sprinter that had made its way into the building. This zombie dropped another pistol, which Marsh pocketed, as well as a brand new melee weapon in the form of a crowbar, which was quickly equipped. Afterwards, Marsh headed back outside in search of the mysterious shooter and found this guy in full gear and carrying a huge light machine gun walking by.
Ooh, who's this guy? You the dude that was shooting? My name's Marsh. What's up? What are you buying? What are you selling?
Our friend here was in fact the guy that was shooting at the zombies, and he also brought with him some very, very, very good gear for sale. Sadly, much like in his normal life, Marsh was hella broke. So, he couldn't buy anything quite yet, but he did take a look through everything to get a better idea of what items would be available in the future taking particular note of the backpacks.
Oh my god.
It was then that the trader decided to jump scare me with these shots, but Marsh swiftly composed himself and joined in with the battle, killing the zombies approaching him. Marsh began to look at the valuation of his items and determined that he actually wasn't too far off of actually purchasing the military backpack, which would provide him with 38 more inventory slots. After selling the knives he was no longer using and several random materials clogging up the inventory, Marsh was $60 richer, placing him at about 150, still 175 short of purchasing the bag. I don't think I can truly express how badly I wanted this backpack. A lack of inventory space is one of the most infuriating things in the world to me. So, I set Marsh to looting the bodies of the zombies he had killed with the help of the trader, finding another 3 crowbars, which each sold for 20 respectively, and a baseball bat. We'll come pick this back up later. After picking up the last crowbar, there was a brief moment of panic, as I thought the trader had left town already. But no worries, we found him right before daybreak.
Oh, there he is. There he is. I wonder if I could fight this guy.
Marsh spoke with him again, selling the other crowbars and finally remembering that the pistol in his inventory was not his only pistol. He sold that one to make up the last $100 needed to purchase the backpack. We could finally carry more than just a few items. With the backpack on and more storage space than he knew what to do with, Marsh returned to pick up the baseball bat he had left behind and started to work on inventory management. With his inventory sorted out, Marsh said his goodbyes to Pine Roads and began his journey.
Pine Roads treated me well. Time to venture, though. So, I think this is the right direction we want to go.
I took out the map and looked it over, settling on heading west towards the valley safe zone. The map says it's a community of friendly scavengers for trading and more, so I hope Marsh can make some allies. I determined that Marsh's best route appeared to be heading west through the forest, skirting the north side of this town, heading along the road above it, and then cutting through the mountain passes, following them southward towards the river, and finally following the banks of the river west until he arrived at the settlement. This route would also allow Marsh a chance to check out these 3 locations, as well as a quick glimpse into the town, but I don't plan on doing too much there yet, as Marsh is not properly equipped to handle an entire town's worth of zombies. With his route laid out, Marsh ventured towards the forest, but quickly stopped when he encountered the next point of interest, an abandoned house overflowing with zombies. He walked forward, quickly handling all the undead, and began to loot the house. The only items of note was another baseball bat, which he threw into the bag, a wallet, which will be eventually used to store my cash and cards, and this sick beanie that he puts on. He'll be rocking this for the foreseeable future. Heading back outside, Marsh noticed the smoking car for the first time and got his first bit of scrap from salvaging it. Scrap is a huge key item for this game, so every little bit goes a long way. It was also during this encounter that he leveled up again, but since we need 2 skill points before we could take another skill, this didn't really matter. Welcome to Grain Valley. While you're taking in the beauty of the view, please ignore that I nearly kill Marsh immediately as I enter or fall into town. He broke his leg, but luckily those splints from earlier patch him up real good. First things first, Marsh worked his way to the nearest building to loot it, clearing out the zombies inside and around the vicinity. During the midst of the ransacking, I got this view from the roof of the lower half of the building, and I thought it was pretty cool. Marsh could see a lot of the town and get an idea of just how overrun it really is. Heading back inside to finish up, Marsh found the grand prize of the day, a fireman's axe. This will not only be an amazing weapon, but also a useful tool once we get into some construction. Marsh finished looting the building, finding little more, but he did get his first pair of binoculars and another case to hold items. On the way to the north side of town, Marsh killed a few more zombies and stopped to loot this partially constructed house, where he found another fireman's axe, which he stashed away for future use, as well as another container in the form of a toolbox, which eventually I'll learn is extremely useful as it holds materials and tools. Many of the containers in this game have item stipulations. For example, the military vest that Marsh carries in his backpack can carry anything you want in the middle slots, but on the sides, it's only able to carry ammunition. Takes me some time to learn that items have these requisites, but once I do, it makes for much better inventory management and transportation. Once out of town, Marsh followed the pre planned path I had laid out for him. He encountered several more zombies, killing them all swiftly with his axe, and then realized that he had leveled up a few times, and finally got to select his second skill. I chose the combat skill on the left so that I can better kill zombies. The skill tree is made up of 3 limbs, with them being split, broadly speaking, into left side combat. Middle is for what I'll call survival skills. You can whistle to distract, better at lockpicking, and a secondary life at the bottom. And on the right was for movement slash scavenging. While traveling, Marsh heard some gunshots, and walking over, he found a familiar face, the Wandering Trader. He helped him clear out the last zombie that he couldn't quite seem to get a good shot on, and he spoke with them again, finding that he had different gear this time around, which leads me to believe that this is not the same guy from earlier, but still a welcome sight nonetheless. While in the trade inventory, we were ambushed by zombies, and the unthinkable occurs. Yes, your eyes do not deceive you. The Wandering Trader, Marsh's only friend and ally in this world, had fallen. Whether it was by a misplaced bullet in the attempt to save him, or by the radioactive zombies' attacks, the world will never know. Once the coast was clear, Marsh moved over to pay his respects.
I'm sorry, friend. I don't know if it was my bullet that got you or if he got you, but just know I will carry on in your name.
Respect for the fallen paid, Marsh headed back to loot the building he had passed on the way over. It was a church, and inside, Marsh found a pair of cargo pants, which he immediately put on, giving him a few extra inventory slots. I also got this pretty shot of the windmills. And outside, Marsh found a wooden loot crate, which I assumed for the longest time was a storage unit, but later you'll see its actual use. I also found this briefcase in the back of the car, which I actually took my time to read and learn can only hold currency and keycards. Marsh shot and killed the zombie, and then hopped in this yellow Jeep, driving like 50 feet before deciding that the nearly empty tank of gas and smoking engine wasn't worth the zombies he'd likely attract driving around in it. He hopped out and headed up the mountain, fighting his way all the way to the top and leaving a sea of zombie corpses in his wake. With the last zombie killed, Marsh scaled the watchtower to get a lay of the land, once again taking in the beauty of the world around him. Marsh took one last look before heading back down the tower towards the next location. Also, along the way, he spent 2 more skill points and now had the ability to attract zombies with a whistle. This is very effective for grabbing the attention of a handful of zombies at once, allowing you to deal with them in batches rather than an entire horde. Once I arrived at the base, killing zombies and looting along the way, Marsh found the next location, the fisherman's house. He looted the car outside, finding some random items and the sledgehammer, which I made the dumb decision of leaving for right now. If you have played Project Zomboid, you know that sledgehammers are a pretty big deal. They give you the ability to tear stuff down. Well, in Surrounded, they play a very similar role, which means I'll have to find another one later. After looting the house and the dock, not really finding anything of value, Marsh headed along the beach of the river, killing any zombies he found. And, as he walked up this incline, day 2 officially came to a close. With the end of day 2 and the start of day 3, one thing was for certain. Marsh was tired, but he was determined to make it to the safe zone tonight. After denying the welcoming party, Marsh whistled to get the attention of the campground's new inhabitants and encountered his first true scare. The first part of the scare came while fighting the first group of zombies. Marsh got incredibly fatigued to the point that he could barely swing his axe and the undead nearly overwhelmed him. Keyword being nearly. Marsh is a fighter, so he pulled through. The second part came after taking a quick breather to recover, and he turned to face down the remaining zombie approaching him. One singular crawler. And if you've ever played a zombie game, you know that these jokers are the real danger.
All right. Oh my god. Hit it. Hit it. Hit it. Oh my god. Oh my god. That was. Ooh.
He continued forward, officially entering the Grain Valley campsite, the final location he had marked on his map to check out. The other two were the tower and the dock. After checking that the closest buildings were safe, Marsh began to loot them, finding nothing of note in the first house, but outside the second one was another wooden loot crate. I promised I'll explain what they do soon, and a sleeping bag. This was the solution to our exhaustion, but with so much adrenaline in his system and zombies still pervading the area, Marsh couldn't think of sleeping yet. Moving on to the second house, he found another sledgehammer that we have to leave behind. Yeah, don't remind me. And remember how I said the houses were safe to loot? Well, that was before Marsh decided to wake up the entire campground in an attempt to speed search through this cupboard. As a result, he was forced to stop his looting and deal with the impending assailants. First, killing the sprinter with his axe, and then rushing out of the house because he saw the red glow of the approaching zombie and figured close quarters wouldn't bode well for facing an enemy who could literally blow up on death. So, yeah, he shot him. He checked out the loot again, but just didn't have the space for anything and decided that looking through the campground would be little more than window shopping. So, after checking his map and realizing that he's nearly arrived at the valley's safe zone, he set out on the last leg of his journey. And with that, Marsh broke free of the forest, bringing an end to his scenic journey. Deciding that it would be best to make sure this wasn't some kind of trap, he climbed to the top of the hill overlooking the settlement and he peeked inside with his binoculars. He concluded that it looked safe enough and he slid down the hill, approaching the entrance of the settlement, walking right on inside. Marsh had finally made it. The friendly settlement, the valley safe zone, the last bastion of hope for the valley and possibly even the world. While it was clearly a safe community and bristling with survivors, even containing a marketplace, the inhabitants were rather standoffish, preferring to keep to themselves, and they were very quiet. Not a single one would speak to Marsh outside of the stall workers. Which, to be fair, I'm not sure I'd want to talk to someone who just entered the settlement either. Even if this place was open to everyone, being skeptical of newcomers seemed only logical. After introducing himself to everyone he met, Marsh headed to the house at the back, assuming the leader must live there. Instead, all he found was a dog, who he of course gave a pet to. Walking inside, he found the building empty. It does appear that the dog was the only inhabitant. There was a sleeping bag on the floor, but Marsh decided that there was no real reason to sleep right now, and he would need to be up and moving soon anyways. So, he walked back outside and explored the other parts of camp that he had not yet visited. And we finally figure out the loot chest. They work how you'd expect. You open them, give you random reward. A loot chest after all. Just because of the apocalypse doesn't mean you can't gamble. With the first loot chest, Marsh received another weapon, the FNFAL, which isn't of much use to us right now, but once we get some ammo for it, the gun packs a punch. And the other gave us 5 canteens filled with clean water. Extremely useful tools going forward. Marsh ventured right outside the safe zone to collect some wood to build his first piece of equipment, the construction workbench. With this, he'll be able to make storage containers, walls, doors, and more, giving him the ability to eventually make his very own base. Marsh's inventory was filled, and he wasn't about to drag this table behind him the entire time he scouted around. So, he visited one of the vendors, selling some of his gear to clear up the space, making a bit more money in the process. Meanwhile, another plane flew overhead, and Marsh watched it for a moment, noting the direction it was flying in. Taking his crafting bench, he exited the settlement, heading the direction of the plane, and spotted something interesting on the horizon. Airdrops. What it contained, he wasn't sure yet, but he'd make sure to find out. With his new goal in mind, Marsh set out in the direction of the airdrops. While traveling, though, I realized there was no point in looting the airdrops quite yet. One reason, Marsh was hella tired and he needed somewhere to rest for the night. Second reason, he had zero inventory space. So, anything he found, he wouldn't be able to realistically carry back. Lucky for us, as we exited the forest, we stumbled upon an abandoned apartment building, a place that would solve both these problems. Unlucky for us, it was only abandoned in the human sense. Hefting his axe, Marsh got to work evicting the current occupants. With the zombies dead, Marsh looted the bodies and headed inside, exploring the lowest level and deciding that this shop area would be a good place to set down a workbench. After some looking inside the bench, this is when I realized I did something kinda dumb. I built the wrong workbench. Don't get me wrong, this one is amazing, extremely helpful, and I will need to have it eventually. But I can't make any of the basic materials to build stuff, like, for instance, nails. These items are craftable through a crafting bench, but you know what's needed to build a crafting bench? That's right, nails. But then I remembered that nails can also be found in the world. So I got to work searching for any nails that may be hidden throughout the building. Also gives Marsh a good excuse to explore the floors and see if there are any stragglers hiding around. Now there are a lot of locations to loot in this building, so here's a quick montage of all of that, plus a list of the items worth mentioning. 3 XP books, which I read and gave me, you guessed it, XP. Food, food, energy drink, some more food, ammo and a face mask, lunchbox and a water bottle. This lunchbox is clutch. Much like other storage items, it contains just food and water items and is very useful for transportation. Tactical hatchet and crafting supplies, which I will grab later, a big jug of water, another locker that I need bolt cutters for, a tent, and a bottle of antiseptic, among other random miscellaneous items. With the building searched through and no nails found, Marsh headed downstairs to reassess his plans. It was about now that Marsh realized his only course of action was to either A. ransack other nearby buildings and cars in search of a non guaranteed item, or B. run back to the valley's safe zone and use their crafting bench to finish up the materials needed to build his own. So, he left some items on the shelves, ran back over to the safe zone, built the nails, got distracted at the cooking pit, looked at the supply trader and equipment trader's wares, bought a fishing rod, refused to elaborate, and left, returning to base and finally building his workbench. Now it was time to collect some wood and build the wooden planks. Wood collected, he turned them into planks and built his first storage container. I placed it down and quickly realized he's gonna need a lot of these. So, while storing some items, Marsh headed back outside to collect more wood for another container, only to be distracted by a zombie who appeared to be standing guard over 2 police cars. He took out his FAL and fired it for the first time, and blam! One shot. I told you this thing would pack a punch. But it also makes a loud bang, so it drew in a couple other zombies from off the road. Dispatching of them, Marsh headed over to see what the first zombie had been guarding. It appeared that this had been used as some kind of blockade or last stand by the officers, seeing as how there were ammo and supply boxes surrounding the vehicles. Inside the big supply pallet, Marsh found a generator, which he stuffed in his pockets. And in the ammo boxes, he found several concealed ammo and 2 grenades. He'll be saving these for a special day. Taking the loot, Marsh headed back to base. Once back, he decided to go to the top floor and set up his bed for the night, placed his sleeping bag on the ground. This felt like the safest spot in the building as it offered a great view of the surrounding area, and with that, plenty of time to warn of impending intruders. Sleeping bag placed, Marsh began unloading his inventory into the nearest containers, freeing up the vast majority of his backpack and organizing it overall. Still not satisfied with how much he could carry around at once, Marsh headed back outside to collect more wood and built himself another container, which he dragged upstairs and placed next to his sleeping spot. After dumping the majority of his inventory in this container, Marsh took out his binoculars and set his sights on the next place he's going to loot, a truck stop not too far from the apartment building he now calls home. With fatigue watching over him, Marsh decided that it was time to finally get some rest. His first night's sleep in 2 days brought an end to day 3. The first thing Marsh did on day 4 was get ready for the day ahead. He grabbed ammo to refill his weapons, grabbed his medical supplies, and packed food and water into his lunchbox like it was the first day of school. Rested and reorganized, Marsh headed to the truck stop to start the day's work. Upon arrival, a few zombies approached, eager to announce themselves. As a quick note, I am looting every zombie I kill. I just don't show it since they rarely carry anything useful. Most of the time it's nothing, and if it isn't nothing, it's usually junk. Sometimes ammo if I'm lucky, maybe a can of sardines or a bottle of water. Feeling on top of the world, Marsh drew his pistol, whistled to get the attention of the remaining undead, and began to unload on them, choosing to handle them all at once. This was a closer fight than it should have been, since Marsh ran out of ammo in his pistol and was forced to back up using his axe to hold him off before being able to switch to his SMG and finish off the last couple stumbling in. And of course, it had to be a sprinter when he ran out of ammo. With most of the locals dealt with, he began searching the truck stop. The first major find were these gas pumps, something to come back for once he had a vehicle. Then, a garage defended by a grandma, may she rest in peace. Inside the garage, Marsh found another generator, once again stuffing it in his backpack. Outside, a pallet held some fencing, perfect for a future base, and a pile of crates that didn't escape his trained eye. Back near the entrance, he cleared the storefront and discovered one of the most important items yet, and for the entirety of the playthrough: the GPS. This device is equipable and it shows key locations, Marsh's own position, and airdrop markers, something I did not notice at the time. But, as if on cue, another plane flew overhead and dropped a payload nearby. Determined to get his hand on some airdrop loot, he decided to check it out. After some vigorous climbing, Marsh stopped to scout the town over, marking the zombies he saw. This ability will be handy in the future, but right now I'm just getting the hang of it and practicing. After climbing a bit further, Marsh pulled out the map, and it was now that he realized the GPS showed airdrops, marking them by type. The two he had just seen fall were close, so he continued to press on. Once at the top, Marsh spotted the medical drop outside an abandoned building below, hopefully actually abandoned this time. And after some slight backtracking, he arrived at the bottom and discovered a new point of interest: the abandoned warehouse. Scouting the warehouse with his binoculars, Marsh concluded that the coast was clear and headed over to the supply crate. Inside the medical supply crate was another flare gun, some more splints and bandages, and the real prize: water purification tablets. He hadn't needed them yet since he was regularly finding bottles off the zombies and in loot stashes, but they'd be essential later. Also, ignore that Marsh decided to leave some bandages behind. But anyways, content with his findings, he moved on to the military drop, and like the one before it, it did not disappoint. Containing a shotgun, magazines, weapon attachments, gas, military pants, which he immediately put on, and last but not least, radiation pills, one of which he popped right away, restoring his resistance to 70%. These airdrops were exactly what Marsh needed, and as I'd later learn, not even the best of them. Unsurprisingly, airdrops can pack some loot. Afterwards, Marsh checked the warehouse, which turned out to be truly abandoned. No loot, but it was spacious, secure, and with closable doors. Might even make for a good future base. But for now, Marsh would stay in the apartments. On his way back, Marsh discovered Whitewood, an old tourist town that also happened to be home to a primary infestation zone, marked by a red hazmat symbol. He proceeded carefully, marking zombies with his binoculars along the way. He even spotted a rabbit that rage baited the zombies. After nearly deciding to go guns blazing for no reason whatsoever, really don't know what Marsh was thinking, he hunted his own rabbit, getting a few pieces of meat. Back at base, it appeared a few squatters had moved in, so Marsh gave them the appropriate welcome party. Afterwards, Marsh noticed something strange. The shelves looked lootable again. Well, it turns out, loot containers reset. That's great for farming resources. You get so much loot, so many items, it's amazing. But what happens to items that you left in one of these containers? Marsh learned the answer the hard way, after rushing upstairs and finding the cupboard next to his sleeping bag like this. Yep, that's right. Items and loot containers disappear when they reset. All those items he had placed in there earlier, gone to the void. Poof, disappeared. Deleted. However, he wasn't going to let this get him down. After all, the entire building's loot spots had just reset. And the big upside of the apartments, it had a lot of loot spots. So, after placing this wardrobe, sprucing up the room a little bit, Marsh got to work checking the building over. Inside another container, he found a winter jacket. It appeared to be a Patagonia, so you know he had to put it on. It also came with some extra slots, which was pretty nice. He also placed down a bed, which he never actually uses, so just ignore it, and he even found some cigarettes, lighting one up for the aesthetic. After looting the upper floor, Marsh is once again faced with a dwindling inventory. So, taking his axe, he headed back outside, filled up his canteens real quick, using his new water tablets to purify the water, told you that'd be handy, and performs some minor deforestation and heads back inside, where he once again gets sidetracked, looting everything. I think Marsh might be a little ADHD. So, after a quick looting spree, Marsh headed back upstairs and finally realized that loot containers could be switched between loot and storage. So you see, loot containers reset on a timer, which, like I said, is amazing, and I love it. But again, any items that would be in the container at the time of resetting get deleted. So the game lets you change a naturally occurring container's categorization to storage container, which will then treat the space like a storage container built by yours truly. So he converted the cupboard by a sleeping bag into storage and began organizing, placing some of the larger items he had found today inside it. Remembering why he had gathered the wood in the first place, Marsh headed downstairs to craft his next storage container, but then realized he was one nail short. He had forgotten the nails he'd been carrying around all day in the container upstairs, and he headed back upstairs for the last one. But just as he reached the top, text appeared on screen, and day 4 came to a close. Day 5 was a pretty uneventful day until nearly the end, so I'll summarize everything up to that point quickly. First, Marsh stayed up all night working on storage management. He headed outside, he collected some more wood, and he built another container. He then reloaded the truck stop, actually grabbing the gas cans this time, and he found his first pickaxe, which means he can now mine rock. This is actually kind of a big deal. He killed some zombies who heard him scavenging, and then this happened. We'll revisit that later. He watched more airdrops fall, he grabbed some items to go sell at the safe zone, placed down a trash can. You gotta keep your workspace clean, you know. He traveled to the safe zone where, with his eyes on a new backpack, he sold a mixture of items and materials to the vendors, finally making enough money to buy this brand new hiking backpack. Came with more inventory slots, albeit a little bit of an awkward setup. I think this is the first time I really made the connection that more inventory slots did not necessarily equal better in this game. Now, I'm a big fan of more inventory slots, and normally they are, but some containers were better at carrying some things and bad at carrying other things. It was a give and a take. He stopped by and pet the dog. That's a must when visiting the safe zone. Cooked the raw meat, boiled some dirty water at the campfire, and visited the supply trader, finding to much our excitement that he was selling a pair of bolt cutters. We'd finally be able to access the military lockers scattered throughout the map, one of which sat in our very own base. On the way out, he ran into a familiar face, the wandering trader. Whether this was the original guy or someone else, we don't really know, but we know it's not the second guy. After giving a brief greeting, we say our goodbyes and head out, with the new backpack and the bolt cutters within, in search of the airdrops that had fallen earlier today, killing zombies and looting cars along the way. As Marsh neared the airdrop, the zombies seemed to grow in numbers. My only guess would be that the noise of the landing attracted them, or the plane. But the question is, if an airdrop falls on a concrete building and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a noise? Let that sink in while Marsh deals with the undead guards. With the first group of zombies dealt with, Marsh approached the building that held his airdrop and faced off against the second line of defense. And with that, the construction site was clear and Marsh could loot in peace. So, you know earlier how I said I'd come back for that tactical hatchet I found when my inventory is full? Well, I sorta kinda didn't. But don't worry, the world decided to shine brightly upon Marsh and granted him another chance, and this time he didn't turn it away. I found this cool scarf and threw it on, and Marsh decided to immediately take off his jacket and show it off. We see the fit, Marsh? You can put your clothes back on now. So, after looting the bottom floor, Marsh headed upstairs to reach the airdrop, only to realize there was one tiny problem. It was on the roof. And right now, there's no way up. I think I can make Marsh build something to reach it, but I don't exactly have the materials or a workbench on him to do so, and I wasn't going to make him go all the way back to base to do this. So instead, Marsh roamed around for several minutes like a chicken with its head cut off, trying to jump at the top of the ladder, seeing if he could get a weird angle on the sides and pull himself up. I don't know the mechanics of mantling this game fully, so yeah, we tried everything, including jumping onto this pillar in the hopes that he'd be able to jump onto the roof from there, maybe grabbing the edge and pulling himself up, but yeah, none of it worked. So in short, I spent nearly 2 minutes. I'm not even gonna put the blame on Marsh for this one. This is entirely my fault. Running around before finally getting the bright idea to see, like, could I loot it from below? And yeah, you see the result. Yeah, that's right. It was accessible the entire time I was running around like a buffoon. But I will say, this loot was worth every second of looking like an idiot because what I found inside was awesome. A brand new Coyote backpack with 60 whole slots inside of it. It is a bummer that I just spent several $100s on this new hiking backpack, but hey, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. And at some point during the past few days, I learned that right clicking storage items in your inventory gives you the ability to open and view them like you would if you were wearing them normally. So I right clicked on the new backpack, placed all the other items from the airdrop inside of it, notably of which contain another SMG mag for the Victor Crest, another FAL, an SVD rifle, a whole lot of ammo and attachments, some MREs, and a new pair of black military pants. I do some quick inventory Tetris, and I place my old backpack full of items inside the new backpack. With a big smile on my face, I set out in search of the next airdrop, which appears to have fallen into the river near our base. Mounting the hill, I see it floating in the river like I guessed and head down, but for some reason decide to go fishing first. I also started to randomly take damage, and in my confusion, it took me a few seconds to realize that the damage was coming from being extremely dehydrated. After a moment of panic, I got my lunchbox open and drank enough water to hydrate an entire elephant. I thought the zombies had evolved and were throwing things at me or something, but no, it was just my own negligence. With water drank, Marsh hopped into the water, swimming to the airdrop and looting it. It was a pretty solid set of items, lots of bandages, even more water purification tablets and radiation pills, and 6 whole bottles of antiseptic, which I'm sure will eventually be extremely useful later, among other random items. Marsh fished a few moments longer, catching 2 small fish, and then he mined his first stone of the playthrough on his way back to the base. Once back, he decided to clear the zombies to the police blockade nearby and loot it again as the items had reset. He found a decent amount of ammo and then chopped down another tree so that he had enough wood to build a campfire, which would allow him to cook the meat and food that he finds. Campfire built, he cooks the meat and the fish he had collected throughout the day. By the way, he hunted a deer earlier today, forgot to mention that. And as the day unwinds, he sets his sight on his next goal, a disassembly bench, which I can only assume disassembles items, duh, into their base components, and I seriously hope that means I can find scrap easier, because right now it is proven to be the most elusive item in the entire world. While looking through this container for components, day 5 officially comes to an end. Alright, day 6 begins and Marsh has 2 goals for this day. First, build the disassembly bench. Second, get a vehicle. We found that Jeep earlier that was heavily damaged, so that is an option, but we will first have to build a repair kit to finish it. But before anything else begins, a light bulb goes off in Marsh's head, and he finally remembers. We have bolt cutters. So, running up the stairs, I like to imagine on all fours like you did as a kid. Yes, you. We all did. Don't say you didn't. He opens up the locker and finds, well, not too much. Considering how OP the locker in the tutorial was, I had super high hopes of great gear for this one, but was kinda disappointed. But in reality, I did get better boots and binoculars. Also found this body armor, which sounds great in theory, but in reality, it doesn't have any item slots, so into the inventory void it goes. I also take this time to loot the rest of the building as everything had reset. And well, here's the cool things I found. The Friday the 13th special. The Kawaii backpack that I can't for the life of me remember if I pick up later or not. A small chair that I decided to go place on the little balcony on the roof. This gives me a big Peter Griffin vibes, if you know, you know. A nice way to burn everything down in the form of a Molotov cocktail, and a secret access keycard that I found in this broken down car outside. After a quick trip over to the safe zone to sell some of the items I just looted, buying some of the missing materials for the disassembly bench, I also accidentally sell my military container that I carry around like a briefcase, because I thought, stupidly, that the duffel bag would be able to fill the same slot. After hastily returning to the trader I sold it to in hopes he had it for resale, I left depressed and down 18 inventory slots. This was one of the biggest L's so far. Once back, Marsh built the disassembly bench and got to work learning what could and couldn't be broken down. It was a trial by error thing. Lucky for me, a lot of my trash items like empty cans, cameras, and smartphones could be broken down into valuable parts. Most important of which was the scrap. I now have a reliable way to make scrap, which means I have a reliable way to build other items and expand the base, or future base. With goal 1 completed, it was time to search for a vehicle. But first, some more airdrops fell, so you know how to go loot them. Dropping off my inventory, and yes, I did mark these containers as storage containers. I won't be losing all my items again like last time. I set out for the airdrops. all of which weren't too far away, just a small trip over there. First, I found this drugstore, which I cleared out and looted, of course. Found lots of really good medical loot. Most notably, this medical bag that I can now carry all of my medical items inside. No more pills and rags in my pockets. I then lockpick the safe and get some big money out of it. Marsh ain't a broke boy no more. Afterward, I head outside and loot the nearest crate, which turns out to also be a medical crate. A small med kit this time, some more radiation pills, bandages, antiseptic, and I think this is my first time finding painkillers, as well as a small med kit. I know that's my first time. I'm not sure about the painkillers though. I've looted a lot of this by now. Once the crate was looted, I head to the next airdrop and spot exactly what I've been looking for all day, a utility truck. Once I arrive at the vehicle I repair with the repair kit I smartly brought along with me, and then I search the crate nearby, finding the best gear I've scavenged so far. A large Coyote backpack, so it's what I currently got on, but better, an industrial sized generator, lots of MREs, lots of water, this really cool radiation mask, some very much needed gas now, and 42, I repeat, 42 bottles of alcohol. Marsh can party for as long as he wants going forward. I don't think I can truly explain how impactful this single airdrop was. These loot finds were crazy good, but the party ain't over yet. We have one more airdrop to loot, and Marsh really wanted to take his new truck for a spin. So he refueled and hopped in, charging it right up the hill to see what this baby could do. While Marsh was driving up the hill, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for watching. This took a lot of time and effort to make, so if you made it this far, you're awesome. So thank you so much. Also, please consider subscribing if you haven't. It would mean a lot and it would really help out the channel. But anyways, back to the video. Thanks again, guys. Once at the top, Marsh proceeded to loot the airdrop, finding the usual medical items. And then he hopped up on these rocks, admiring the beauty of the world around him. But while doing so, another plane decides to bless us with even more care packages. I don't know who these guys are dropping supplies for us, but they are a godsend. They give us so much loot throughout this entire time. However, we couldn't spot the plane at first since the sky was relatively cloudy, but we do check our map and see that there is actually one more airdrop nearby that was just begging to be looted. So, hopping back in our truck, we head on over and begin to clear out the zombies defending the last airdrop. Or, I think it's the last airdrop. Pulling out my machete, I decide to do my best Jason Voorhees impression. I had swapped the machete earlier to save my axe's durability. Once the rot stinkers were dealt with, I searched the last crate and found a pretty nice bit of loot. An AUG assault rifle, some more ammo and magazines, and another gas mask alongside actual filters now, which means I can better protect myself from radiation. The masks aren't just for looks anymore. The looting out of the way, Marsh decided it was time to put some of his ammo to good use. There's no point in bullets and guns if you don't use them, right? So, he shouldered his FAL and got to work eliminating all nearby undead. First, firing a warning shot, of course, which they promptly ignored. Zombies dead, I loot this church they were defending. The only thing worth mentioning being this safe full of cash. Once again, kinda rich now. But anyways, with pockets full of cash, a boatload of new loot and gear, and having completed his 2 goals of the day, Marsh begins his journey back to the base, and along the way, day 6 comes to an end. On my drive back to base, I decided that today, being the last day for the video, I need to do something a little special. So, I decided that Marsh would take on a boss zombie. I haven't mentioned these yet, but if you were observant, you would have noticed that some towns listed a few things under their little information sections. A common one is the number of POI boss zombies within. So, I chose the boss zombie that makes the most sense, the one that resides within Grain Valley. I felt it was only right that this location be the origin of my first zombie boss fight, as it was the first town I stumbled upon. Not to mention that with killing the zombie lord and clearing the other undead within the town, I would most certainly get tons of loot. But on my way back, I stumbled upon something rather interesting, another survivor encampment. This base wasn't marked on the map, so it really caught my attention when I found it. But not knowing whether these folks would be hostile or not, I decided to err on the side of caution, marking the spot on my map before heading back down the hill away from the camp and back to my base. Once I arrived back at base, I unloaded the truck, placing the industrial generator outside next to my tent and campfire, and then went to cut some trees for a new storage container, which I then realized the trees also respawn, although it does appear that they are on a longer timer than typical loot container respawns. But anyways, I build a storage crate and unload a lot of the gear I collected from day 6. I know the fight ahead of me will be challenging, so I pack accordingly, bringing only the essentials. So lots of food, lots of ammo. I think this might be the most empty my inventory has been since day 1. But anyways, with my inventory prepped, the day nearing noon, I headed out for Grain Valley. At the top of the hill, Marsh gets one last look at Grain Valley before beginning the descent into what might be the last fight of his life. But don't worry, Marsh has no plans of dying today. As he nears the town, a very unexpected sound is heard in the distance. Yep, that's a group of survivors fighting off the zombies in the area. Seeing that they might be in need of help, Marsh hopped out and started getting to work killing some of the zombies. But it appears that these survivors were not the benevolent kind. They were, in fact, bandits.
Ooh. Oh!
Wounded, Marsh hurried to cover, turning and gunning down the first bandit coming around the corner, marking the first human life he had been forced to take at this new world. He rounded the corner, firing at another bandit further away, dropping him with 2 shots. A third bandit had come to the other end of the bus, firing in his direction, drawing Marsh's attention to the group of zombies barreling towards him. He dropped the zombies and turned back to finish off the bandit who'd been firing his way, quickly dropping a final bandit who had been trying to flank him. With the bandits dead, it was all quiet in the world. Heart pounding, Marsh looted the bandits' bodies, finding lots of ammo and alcohol, and even a couple of new rifles, all of which he loaded into his truck. He's got to keep open space for the day ahead. Nearby zombies dead, and bandits having joined them, Marsh approached the city in his truck and got to work with what he had planned to do all along. Whistling to get their attention, Marsh started to pick off the citygoers one by one. With the outermost line of zombies dealt with, Marsh continued deeper into the city, a siren blaring ahead of him. Since this was his first time in a city, he made sure to proceed with caution and care, regularly whistling so as not to be surprised by any hiding undead. Once he had made it deep enough, Marsh caught sight of the source of the siren, and crowded at its base was the largest group of zombies he had encountered so far. So, checking the ammo on his weapons to make sure they had full magazines, Marsh took aim and unleashed a hail of bullets upon the unsuspecting crowd of rotten bodies. I do gotta say, after saving my ammo for so long, this was a blast to just let loose and gun these zombies down. Not to mention that other games like this, like Project Zomboid for instance, firing a gun this early into the game is equal to just you're dead. You're overrun, you're dead. So it felt good to not have to worry about that. But anyways, a couple of stragglers came forward and Marsh lured them inside before dropping them with his pistol. And with the coast clear, at least for the moment, Marsh reloaded his weapons. Afterwards, taking a peek outside and spotting the big bad of Grain Valley, Mr. Weaver. The story goes that he was an experienced survivalist who had lived outside of Grain Valley with his wife before the apocalypse. The outbreak occurred when his wife was in the city and Mr. Weaver was at home. Once he heard what was happening, he gathered supplies and ran into the city, only to find his wife had turned. With her death, he changed, and the kind hearted soul everyone knew became a much colder and closed off shell. He reigned over Grain Valley for a while, killing the zombies who roamed into the city, but after some time a horde came through, and the next time anyone saw Mr. Weaver, he had been turned himself. It was now Marsh's duty to put Mr. Weaver to rest with his wife. On the real, I was super excited for this boss fight, but sadly, he was bugged out and he was stuck on top of this car, so it was literally like shooting a zombie in a barrel. He couldn't do anything except stand there menacingly. The scariest part were the sprinters chasing me while I was shooting at Mr. Weaver. So I'll play the fight, quote unquote fight, but still kind of a bummer. All right, Mr. Weaver, time for our big battle. Are you gonna move? Okay. Good. Oh, okay. Guess not. Is that the farthest you can go? Um, well, this is a little anticlimactic. Honestly, these sprinters have been more difficult. Speaking of, come on, okay, oh, okay. Whew. And oh god, am I bleeding? I am bleeding. Okay, fixed. Well, good fight, I guess, Mr. Weaver. Let's see what you got. Well, it's not over quite yet. Let me. Okay, now let's see what you got. The loot was pretty solid. Not quite as impressive as I was expecting, but I think this legendary sniper rifle alone was probably worth it. Also, a drum magazine, extra attachments, and an extra backpack. None of that's bad at all. Nothing's too shabby. However, with Mr. Weaver dead and looted, Marsh could begin to loot the town and find the real remaining prize that was hidden somewhere inside the advanced loot crate. So, we got to looting, and since we've done this a million times already, I'll just shortcut to right before we found the crate. And spoiler, it's pretty great. After about 6 minutes of scavenging, finding a little bit of everything, we stumble upon the house that contains the high tier loot crate. And well, we'll let it speak for itself. Yep, your eyes do not deceive you. That is, in fact, 3 brand new, never before seen weapons: 1 shotgun, 2 assault rifles. Also, a legendary suppressor, which I suspect will work very well with my new sniper rifle. The Spec Ops plate carrier, which doubles as an armor plate and storage vest, so that's pretty awesome. And last but not least, another secret access keycard. We're going to find some really cool stuff later. But yeah, with that, we've effectively conquered Grain Valley. Marsh has done it. Now, all that's left is to continue looting the town until day 7 comes to an end. And back at the truck, Marsh dropped off his gear and set up camp on top of this bus, complete with a sleeping bag, camping light, and a newfound radio. As he stood there, he stared out over the town of Grain Valley and imagined that this is how Mr. Weaver must have felt when he conquered the city by himself. And while admiring the scene before him, day 7 came to a close, bringing an official end to Marsh's first week in the apocalypse. But don't worry, he's only just getting started. Alright guys, well that's the end of the video. Feel free to leave now, but if you want to stay, I have a couple things to say. First things first, absolutely love this game. It's a banger, it's a blast. The most fun I've had on a single player game in quite a minute, and I mean like a decently long time. This really brought me back. The forgiving nature of the loot drops and like the respawn, as well as the lived in nature of the planes flying through, the NPCs, good and bad guys. It just makes it really feel like the world is alive and moving around me. And I absolutely love that. Third things third, final thing, I guess. I want to say that this is going to be a 1 month series, like I mentioned before. So next up is week 2, then week 3, and then week 4. And I'm going to go ahead and throw this out here. I'll mention on the next video closer up to the front for people to hear it. But if I get 100 subscribers by the end of this series at any point during this, I will do like one big supercut. So the full month in one big video. And I don't think I'm going to do just a combination. I think I'll make it a more concise, actually like video essay again, not essay, but video gameplay again, walkthrough and stuff. But anyways, Yeah, quick shout out as well to Raccoona on YouTube. This guy's an absolute goat. He put together, and he makes more than he does other videos, more than just this, but he compiled the music in the game, the surrounded music, into a video. I was able to like take the music from there and place it over certain sections of my video. So you could see like moments throughout it where there was like more scenic moments and I had video or music playing in the background. That was thanks to him because I couldn't find anywhere else to download the music. So big shout out to him. I'm gonna link him below and I'll also pop him up screen while I'm talking about him. But anyways, last things last. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching. If you enjoyed, please let me know. This took a lot of time and effort to put together, and I had a lot of time, a lot of fun doing it. I learned a lot, and I feel like I came out of it a better videoer, editor, better speaker, better YouTuber. I feel like I learned a lot. So if you did enjoy, please let me know with a like, a comment, and a subscribe. Once again, 100 subscribers, I'll do the big super cut at the end. So yeah. Also, at the end of this entire thing, I'm going to reevaluate continuing the series. I might do a permadeath series, so you're in a hardcore series, might do a nightmare series, or I might just continue this for 100 days or a year. We'll see. We'll reevaluate things because this takes a lot of time to get done, like actual hours, 5 hours per week. But yeah. Anyways, until next time, guys. Y'all take care. Pray for my boy Marsh. He's still out there. Anyways, see y'all later.